Welcome to the June Consulting webinar provided to you by CDI. My name is Michael Mathis. I am the Client Services Director at CDI, and I will be presenting today's webinar where we are looking at Web Access Details pane tabs, 3 powerful examples to wow your users. If you need help at any time during today's webinar or have any questions, please post them in the questions box at any time. I will be watching the box during the presentation, and I will also be answering any questions that are posted after today's presentation. If you do need help and you do have a question, please raise your hand and we can answer questions during the webinar if needed. And a few tips for success for today's webinar. Be sure to take good notes. Taking notes and screenshots during the webinar will help you remember key topics that you want to come back to and revisit. Don't be afraid to ask questions. As I had mentioned, I will be watching the questions box throughout the presentation and answering questions at the end of today's meeting. And please complete the survey afterwards. We do love hearing your feedback and we do love your ideas for future webinars. We definitely keep those in consideration when planning out our webinar schedule. And also please remember that this webinar is going to be recorded and will be available on the CDI YouTube page after today's webinar. The intended topic or the intended audience for today's webinar is Laserfiche administrators. If you are not a Laserfiche administrator, please stay in this meeting. There is going to be plenty of valuable information for you. And our agenda for the webinar today will be covering what are Web Access Details pane tabs, where are the Details panes tabs located, and how do we configure custom tabs to display within Laserfiche Web Access. And finally, we will be doing a live demonstration of custom tabs, as well as configuring a custom tab to display a Laserfiche form. To get started, Details pane tabs, what are they? The Laserfiche Details pane displays additional information based on the selected entry. There are many built-in tabs, as well as the ability to create custom tabs. The Details pane displays on the right-hand side of the Laserfiche Web Client. It is available in both on-premise and Laserfiche Cloud. And we can see in the screenshot a few of the different built-in tabs that are available. And by configuring custom tabs within the Laserfiche Web Client, we can display information from another Laserfiche web application, such as Laserfiche Forms, or we can display information from a third-party website. As an asterisk, web security is constantly changing, and third-party websites are making their sites more secure every day. Some websites, such as Dynamic CRM, Salesforce, do not allow their applications to be embedded within an iframe, which is what the custom tabs display. If that's the case, unfortunately, your browser will display an error message, and we won't be able to use that specific web page. Details panes are available in both the folder browser view on the right-hand side, as well as the document viewer on the right-hand side. Both detail pane tabs do have different defaults that are built in depending on which viewer we are in. For example, the annotations tab is only available when you are inside of the Laserfiche document viewer. With custom tabs, as we will see later in today's webinar, We do have the ability to decide if we want the custom tab available within the folder browser or within the document viewer, or both. For configuring custom tabs, the user that is signed in must have the Manage Repository Configuration privilege assigned. And to start managing tabs, you'll select your user menu from the top right corner and select the Options item in the menu. And next, after the Options pane opens, we can select the Display tab on the left-hand side, and the custom tabs are all displayed down at the bottom of the page. To open the custom tabs configuration dialog, you can click either the Add link or the pencil icon next to an existing custom tab to edit the details. Clicking Add will allow you to create a new custom tab. If you don't see these options available, it is likely because you do not have the Manage Repository Configuration privilege assigned, and in that case, you'll need to contact your Laserfiche administrator to grant you that privilege. Within the Custom Tab dialog, we're able to customize the tab name, the website URL, the location of our custom detail pane, and other display options. The tab name is going to be what is displayed within the details pane as the tab title. The website URL is going to be the website being loaded by web access inside of the custom tab. And with the website URL, we are able to use custom tokens such as the entry ID and template fields that are assigned to that document or folder. For the display options, we do have many options available here. We can display the custom tab only if we are in a specific folder. And we can add multiple folders to our configuration using the Add Folder link. We have the ability to display the custom tab only for entries with a specific template assigned. And we can display the custom tab for only specific groups or users. By configuring the display of the custom tabs, we're able to create more custom tabs for our users without having 100 custom tabs available that can only be used in very rare circumstances. All right, so let's move on to our live demonstration. And for today, I am going to be using the Laserfiche self-hosted client. And here I am logged into my repository as my Laserfiche administrator user. Here I have my details tab or details pane shown on the right-hand side. We do have the ability to collapse the details pane. So if your users are not able to see the details pane, make sure that it's not collapsed. And if it is, click again to expand the details pane. To access the options page for the Laserfiche Web Client, we'll select our username in the top right corner and select Options. And on the left-hand side, we're going to select Display and scroll to the bottom to see our custom tabs, as well as the built-in tabs. We have the ability to reset the order of the tabs, so we can change the display. If we want records to be more prevalent in the tabs configuration, we can drag and drop to move these tabs around. If we want our Fields tab to always be the first tab, we can do so. Clicking the Reset Order link will reset the order of all of your tabs to the default. If we take a look at our Envelope History tab, we can edit the settings of our tab. And this tab is provided by the CDI DocuSign Web Client integration. So with this tab, our tab name is Envelope History. We are loading our website URL and providing the Laserfiche entry ID using the ID token. And we're specifying that this is a demo environment. If we click on our token icon, we can select other fields such as the repository, the folder ID, the current username, or any of the template fields available in our repository. Again, we can change where the folders or where the pane is displayed and add specific folders. We have the option of whether or not to include subfolders as well. So here, if we select our DocuSign folder, we can also include our subfolders. We can add multiple folders by clicking the Add Folder link multiple times. And we can also remove folders that we have added. If we choose our Display Only on Specific Templates option, here's where we can configure the template or templates that we are willing or wanting to display our tab for when they are selected. And if we wanted to only display our tab for specific users and groups, we can do so here by typing in the Laserfiche username, and that will provide a drop-down list for us to select from. We can add multiple users or groups. So we could display for the everyone group, which would kind of defeat the purpose of the display only for specific users or groups, but it is possible. We have a question in the chat if we have the ability to hide any of the tabs. From the options pane, we do not. However, if we go back to our repository, individual users can configure their tabs as well. So if individual users do want to change the display of their tabs, what order they're in, or if they're not even available, we can double-click to remove those tabs. If we want to add them back in, we can double-click and again drag and drop to, oh, we can't drag and drop to reorder. So a per user basis, we're able to remove the built-in tabs through the Configure Tabs option. The user can also reset to the default by clicking the Reset link. And then we have our custom tabs that would need to be re-added for that user. Okay, so to get started on our custom tabs that we have available, we have our Envelope History tab available from the CDI DocuSign Web Client integration, and the ArcGIS tab that we can configure from a ArcGIS layer to select the related feature on a map. If we go to our incoming files and our signed documents folder, we will sort by our creation date. And here you can see we have our contract for new car. This is a signed PDF from DocuSign between Andrew Elbers and Pete's car, represented by Patrick Welsh. Using our envelope history tab, we can view the history of this envelope without leaving Laserfiche. It will show us the subject of the DocuSign envelope, the envelope ID, our status, dates, as well as the individual activities of this envelope. So we can see when individual invitations were sent, when a specific user viewed the document, when they signed the document, and if they requested a printable copy. Selecting other DocuSign envelopes will log me out of my session because I am in a webinar. So selecting other documents will display the correct details for that selected document. If we navigate to our property files folder, we can also view our ArcGIS tab to show our documents or folders where they would be located on a map. Here, since we don't have our criteria met, we can see that this tab is not available for our entry type. Let's take a look at our tab settings here. So here we are displaying the tab only on specific templates, so we need the property files or the property folder template applied. Since our C folder does not have that template assigned, we have no template assigned, our tab is not available for the entry type. If we go into Cedar Shore Drive and select our property folder, here we have our ArcGIS map loading, and it zooms in and selects the parcel associated with this folder. If we go to another folder, our map will zoom in and select that parcel for the associated folder. If we look at our configuration again, our website URL points to our third-party website, www.arcgis.com. And we are using some query string information to configure the map. And at the end, we have our parcel ID template field being appended to the URL. So if we look at our template fields here, based on our parcel ID populated in the field, that is how our ArcGIS tab knows which parcel we have selected and how to load the tab appropriately. Now that we've seen a couple of our pre-configured tabs, let's go in and add a brand new custom tab into Web Access. So we are going to click the Add button, and we'll give our tab a name of HR Onboarding. Here we are going to use the website URL of our two Laserfiche forms, and I am going to pull up our form as well. And I'm going to sign into forms. Okay, so we are going to be embedding our new employee onboarding form into Laserfiche Web Client, and we will be able to pre-fill this information based on template fields that are assigned to our folder. So I'm going to copy our URL, and in our options page, we will paste that in. And to pre-fill information in a Laserfiche form from a URL, we will enter a question mark, enter our variable name, and select our token that we are going to use. So from our employee folder, we will select our first name and OK. And we will continue with our last name variable. And finally, our email. Yep, that is email, not email address. And we will select our DocuSign email address field and select OK. Now we have our HR onboarding custom tab created. And let's take a closer look at our display options. So here we want to display this only in specific folders. So this is only going to be available if we are inside of the employee file folder. And we're going to include subfolders. We'll display this only for specific templates of employee folder. And oops, we do not have an HR group created, so we will display this for all of our users. If we click OK, our tab is now configured, and we can go back to our web client. We will need to refresh our page in order for that new tab to display. And here we can see our HR onboarding tab is available. However, nothing is loading because we are not in the correct folder. So let's go to our employee files folder. And we will pick on Laura first. So here we can see from the folder, we have the first name and last name pulling in, as well as the email address, which we can see that our DocuSign email address is in fact mitch.gardner, even though our folder is for Laura Froyam. If we select Mitch from our list, here we have his information filling in. And we also are able to change the email address. So I can fill in the information that is required and not pre-filled. We'll select the forms that are needed to be completed, and we can submit our form. At that point, any processes that we have running behind the scenes from our forms process will kick off. So, for example, this could send out a DocuSign envelope to the email address recipient we provided, or any number of other actions available with Laserfiche Forms and Laserfiche Workflow. At this point, that concludes the live demonstration. If you do have questions on anything, there are many resources available from Laserfiche as well as from CDI. You can always reach out to CDI at our consulting, sales, or support email addresses. And thank you very much for attending today's webinar. My name is Michael Mathis, the Client Services Director at CDI. At this point, if there are any questions, I will be answering those through the GoToWebinar chat box. Is there a limit to how many fields you can pull in using the URL configuration for forms? If I recall, you can also use JavaScript to grab metadata values for the web access or for the web form. I believe there is a maximum length to the query string. I'm not sure if there is a maximum number of query string arguments that can be used. That would be definitely a good question that I can look into after today's webinar for you. All right, are there any other questions or concerns today? If so, please type them into the GoToMeeting questions box, or feel free to raise your hand. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. As I said, if you do think of questions, I always think of my best questions right after the webinar. Please feel free to reach out. And this webinar will be available on the CDI YouTube channel early next week. Thank you for attending the webinar, and have a great paperless day.